Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a drama-filled edition episode of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy alongside Connor Gray, and Connor, we have had a day of a lot of things have happened. I woke up this morning to Jimbo Fisher scheduling an emergency press conference, had no idea what in the world was going on with that, and now we're here. A few hours later, the aftermath still unfolding. We've had, Nick Saban's responded, Deion Sanders has responded, Lane Kiffin, of course, getting involved because it's Lane Kiffin. What else do you expect from that guy? It has been an entire drama-filled day, and on top of that, we have a lot of other things to talk about. So, Connor, first of all, how's your day go?
I can't really complain. Obviously, ended up waking up to, obviously, like you said, Jimbo Fisher's comments, and it's like, wow, we just coming out swinging today. Just
It definitely has been that kind of day. So if you're wondering, if you haven't been aware, if you've been living under a rock the past, 6 hours at this point, 7 hours.
Give or take.
Yes, wherever that was. Let's get you caught up to speed on what exactly happened. It all started last night when Nick Saban at a World Games meeting, planning thing. I don't know what the exact terminology you want to use for it. But there are a lot of CEOs, a lot of the important business people in Alabama were there. And Nick Saban was doing a little Q&A basically with all of them. And the last question of the night was something about like NIL or the future of Alabama football or something along that lines. And Nick Saban went on to talk about, NIL and how it's changed a lot of things and everything. And then he mentioned, and you have some people like Texas A&M who buys this entire number one class, and that kick-started a entire firestorm because the next morning today, Jimbo Fisher, the head coach of Texas A&M, scheduled a 10 a.m. press conference out of nowhere and said a lot of things in 9.5 minutes. The main one, ESPN chose the headline, was "Some People Think They're God." And, it was, he called Saban's comments despicable. What else is that? We've never bought anybody. No rules have been broken. Nothing was done wrong. It's a shame you've got to sit here and defend 17-year-old kids and families in Texas A&M because we do things the right way. We're always going to do things the right way.
Quotes.
We're always going to be here, and we're doing a heck of a job.
Well, obviously you have to be under assumption that Jimbo's not doing anything wrong, but it's like Texas A&M doing things the right way. It's like, you got a shady history, but I'm not sure how. But from what I can tell under Jimbo, it's been fine.
And then Jimbo continued, "It's despicable that a reputable head coach can come out and say this when he doesn't get his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen. It's ridiculous when he's not on top."
Don't worry, Jimbo. He'll just outcoach you.
Then going on to mention that Jimbo was an assistant with Nick Saban at LSU. And then "Some people think they're God," Fisher said. "Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out a lot of things you don't want to know. We build him up to be the czar of college football. If you go dig into his past or anybody that's ever coached with him, you can find out anything you want to find out, and what he does and how he does it. It's absolutely despicable." So Jimbo just going straight in. And, it didn't stop there for Nick Saban. Last night at his conference as well, he also brought up Deion Sanders, the head coach of Jackson State, signing the number one recruit of the 2021 class, Travis Hunter, or a 2022 class, I guess you should say.
Yeah.
And the rumor with that is that it was a $1 million deal he got to go play there. Deion said, "I don't even get paid $1 million. Our entire athletic budget is less than Nick Saban's personal budget he gets." Jackson State has a budget of $8 million. Nick Saban gets paid $9 million a year to coach football.
It's like their entire football budget is probably several tens of millions of dollars, while Jackson State barely even can get $8 million. So it's like Jackson State is an FCS school and they're an HBCU school. They don't have all the funding they would like to have. So it's just absurd that you just threw $1 million. It's like Deion has been has been slowly turning Jackson State around to actually be a competitive school in FCS. So it's like the kid wanted to go to Jackson State. That's
Yeah.
really all it was.
And then getting back to Jimbo's comments here, and then let's see what else. Saban said, look, I should have never singled anybody out. I wasn't saying that either of those schools did anything wrong. I didn't intend to mean that they were buying players, but more that you're able to do that now and that it's totally legal. You're just using name, image, and likeness to do it. What I'm saying is that it's not good for the game, and it's only going to get worse unless there's some federal legislation, which I think everyone agrees on at this point, because otherwise you're just going to have the Wild West of football going on.
And your problem is if we basically let this become like Major League Baseball, most of the schools are not going to be able to compete for players. I mean, for as great as Oklahoma State has been doing, we can't compete with other schools that have more money than we do. Like, we just cannot buy players.
Yeah, and then to make things further, one of the reporters asked if Nick Saban had tried to call Jimbo Fisher. Fisher said yes, but he is not answering it. He said, not going to. We are done. He is not going to respond to him. And then we get this one here. He's the greatest ever, huh? When you've got all the advantages, it's easy. You coach with people like Bobby Bowden and learn how to do things. You coach with other people and you learn how to not do things. There's a reason people... I ain't back and worked for Saban. I do not want to be associated with him. And so you can call me anything you want to. You can call me a cheat. I don't cheat and I don't lie. I learned that when I was a kid. If you did, your old man slapped you upside the head. Maybe somebody should have slapped him. And so Ross Bjork, the AD of Texas A&M, told ESPN when he learned of the comments, he spoke with Fisher about it first thing Thursday morning. And Bjork said he supports the comments, Fisher said, because this was a personal attack. So this is setting up to be one of the greatest SEC games ever held October 8th. Texas A&M goes to Tuscaloosa. Not only the fact that Texas A&M won that game last year and upset number 1 Alabama, it will be now a personal matter for A&M to win this game. I don't know how much Alabama. I mean, they'll care. Obviously, it's a big game, but
any time like for pretty much any game for Alabama, it's a game. It's a must win for them because it's like, hey, it's our right to go back to the playoff.
Yeah, and then the SEC commissioner Greg Sankey issued public reprimands to both coaches for violating the conference's rules of ethical conduct, and specifically for public criticism of another member school. So this whole thing has spiraled out of control and was absolutely entertaining to see going on. I had zero expectation it would devolve into this, but here we are. And then Lane Kiffin, as I mentioned, he posted funny memes on Twitter. That was his contribution to the entire argument because that's what Lane Kiffin does. When you're the head coach of Ole Miss, you're just kind of there. You're also Lane Kiffin, who just kind of does that. I don't know why he does, but it's funny.
He just does his own thing.
He does. And then Nick Saban, he laments singling out those. He still remains critical of NIL. He also called out Miami for basketball for the one kid getting basically saying, hey, I'm getting paid $400,000 to go here. Does anyone want to try to get me and pay higher? And basically, we're turning this into free agency nearly for college sports.
And it's no wonder why NIL is already getting lambasted by big figureheads in almost every sport. It's because obviously it's just going to get to a point where if it's not kept in check, it's going to get out of control. And some would say it already got out of control as soon as it was implemented. But once again, that varies from people to person.
Yeah, I mean, it does vary. I really don't know how you regulate this because I think everyone agrees the athletes need to get paid. At least most major figures agree on that. But no one knows where to go from there. It's just athletes should get paid. What do you do after that? And I really don't know what the answer is because I feel like there's no way to please everybody.
No, because
some people want it to be kind of more of a free agency thing where, hey, if you've got the money, you've got the money, which leads
that's a horrible idea.
Which leads to basically free agency as we're seeing now.
So you basically say if you do that, then Texas can literally just buy any player. I mean, I know they can't develop those players, but they could literally just buy all the 5 stars.
Well, I mean, that's how some people see it is, well, it doesn't matter 5-star talent. It matters how well you can coach. If you have 5-star talent across the board but can't coach your way out of a paper bag, then you're still not going to win a national title or maybe even go to a good bowl game.
Even then, you're taking a lot of talent away from other schools that could actually develop them and that they actually could have better careers. But by throwing all the money at them, they're probably not going to have as much desire to really work as hard. Because, like, hey, I got paid. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, that's how some athletes, I'm sure, will look at it. But unfortunately, that's where we're at in college athletics right now. I also want to get to this. This happened yesterday. The NCAA Division I Council officially voted to eliminate requirements for a title game, or to eliminate certain requirements, the main one being divisions. Divisions are no longer necessary in college football.
So it's just the Pac-12 that scrapped it?
The Pac-12 scrapped it. I believe the ACC is going to try to get rid of it next year. The only holdout seems to be the SEC, and they're just more kind of waiting on when OU Texas get there. They'll figure out what to do when they get to that point. But as of right now, the Pac-12 has already scrapped it for this year. So they're going to play the division schedule that's already set in place.
But next year,
the next year there will be no divisions. But they're not going to have division winners this year. They're going to play the schedule as it is.
So
the top two teams will play each other in the Pac-12 championship game, which, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this. I like divisions. I've always said I'm for divisions in football. I think it's better. I know a lot of people say that, well, I mean, what if you have a team that's 11-1 and the second best team's 10-2 and you go play a 7-5 team in your championship game? Don't lose to the 7-5 team.
Exactly.
I mean, don't overlook them. You're the one overlooking them then. I mean, this has happened in a lot. I mean, this happened in the SEC East a long time ago. It would be Alabama versus an 8-win Florida team.
And the reason
Alabama would smoke them, and no one cared.
Well, and the reason why you have divisions is because it's to make sure to keep regards to travel. Because, especially on your schedule, if you have to play, like, let's say when Cincinnati, when the three AAC teams and BYU come in, the travel is going to be atrocious if you don't have divisions set up. Because teams might have to immediately go travel, like BYU has to go to Cincinnati, UCF, West Virginia. They basically have to go to schools that are several miles out immediately and don't play enough teams relatively closer to them. That's where you kind of run into some problems. I'm just saying, for example.
Yeah.
For that. And BYU is just an easier one because just how far away they are from the other teams that are out east.
Yeah.
But so that's why you have divisions set up. That way it keeps everything together, keeps teams closer together whenever you have basically, so it keeps travel down.
Yeah.
You might occasionally have to make a trip out to make that occasional long trip, but that's usually like once maybe at most twice a year.
Yeah.
Very, very rare.
Now, the reason I know a lot of people are in favor of scrapping divisions is that it allows you to play everybody in the span of 2 years, so you would get to play a home and away with it would be, if you come in as a freshman, you would get to play every team in the conference twice, once at your place and once at their place, which I do like that. I would think that would be neat to do, but at the same time, the thing I'm always going to be worried about is if you have, one team that say they go undefeated in conference play and two teams that both lose a game and they don't have a tiebreaker against each other, who goes? Obviously that undefeated team would go, but then how do you determine who the second and third? Do you go by playoff rankings?
Then more likely what will happen.
Do you go by strength of record? Like, what is the tiebreaker you use?
Tiebreaker will be what you said, either strength of record. If both teams happen to not be ranked, they somehow, they'd probably go off strength of schedule because you can't really necessarily determine their national rank.
Yeah.
A lot of time, while as if they're both ranked, they'll just go by the who's up, who's higher, or maybe also strength of schedule. They'll probably take multiple different factors and then account to who they've played, and especially they might look at non-con, determine who's the tougher team. What I would do, and that's the scenario where you got to hope that doesn't happen, because they're not going to throw in a game out of nowhere for them to play.
Yeah.
Just to break the tiebreaker, and it's like that's just not going to work.
Yeah, so they're not going to add a 13th game to the schedule just to let those two sort it out.
More likely what will happen, they probably just won't. What I would do is just you don't count the game. You just say, oh, that team won, they automatically go. That way, because all you're doing is breaking a tie break and just determining who's the better team.
Yeah, I mean,
but even then, that's dumb. What's gonna happen is you're gonna make people upset. Mm-hmm. That's basically what's gonna come. It's basically what happened in 2008 with you had the three-way tie between Texas,
the Big
OU,
12
and
South. Yeah.
So the best division. At the time.
I wish Texas a very happy death by Michael Crabtree. I will always forever be happy about that. Totally legitimate tiebreaker system, no faults whatsoever.
Definitely
won it fair and square. Beat Tech by 40. Listen, you beat the number 2 team in America by 40. You get in. That's just how that works. Don't drop the ball, Blake Gideon. That's all I could say. Don't drop the interception. That's all I could say about that. But I do want to get into the NBA now, moving on from college football news, because, boy, there was a lot of it. I did not expect that much to happen in 2 days, but that's what happens in sports sometimes. You get a lot of crazy things in a short amount of time. But moving on to NBA recap, Boston-Miami was a game that, boy, this was a tale of two halves. Boston just jumps all over Miami in the first half. The Celtics look insanely good. Jason Tatum's making plays. Jaylen Brown is making plays. Everyone's doing what they're supposed to. And then the third quarter starts. Miami goes on their run. Jason Tatum has 3 turnovers in a row. Jimmy Butler's flying around the court. No one can stop him. Bam Adebayo's blocking people. And Miami goes on, I believe it's like a 17-2 run.
It was a 22-2 run.
22-2 run.
And the whole differential of that half was a 39 to, it was like 14.
Yes.
Just difference. And I'm like, just watching that, I know Miami still Miami and Boston were mostly even in the fourth, but it was like Miami pretty much sealed the game by basically just jumping all over them.
Yeah, I say Miami's defensive pressure is just, when they pressure, it's unreal. It is absolutely unreal what they were able to do. Jimmy Butler dropping 41. He had another insane game. And Miami takes that 1-0 lead.
All knows if you're Boston, you either got to have an insane lead going into the second half, or you got to hope Miami forgets how to do third quarter stuff, because Miami is the best third quarter team of the postseason.
Yeah, I mean they definitely looked like it. And then Wednesday night, Dallas Golden State. Golden State, they're waking up a bit. Dallas going cold from 3, really cold, and I mean abysmally cold. 44 of Dallas's 48 three-point attempts were considered wide-open looks, and they did not even make a fourth of them. It was a rough night for Dallas. Golden State looking like themselves, a 112-87 dominating win over the Mavs, which, I mean, I didn't expect it to be a blowout, but about after that first quarter when it was like, okay, we're down 6 and we're missing everything. Okay, we're still missing everything. Okay, Golden State's making a lot of shots now. This is how this game's going to go.
Like, Golden State didn't really have a player that, in regards to points, really stood out, but the whole team, the team as a whole, played well.
Yeah, so Andrew Wiggins had 15 points in the first half, and then he really didn't need to do anything else because then Klay Thompson got going, then Steph Curry got going, then Jordan Poole made shots. Kevon Looney had a good game where he outplayed Dwight Powell the first time the Mavs have had a size advantage at center this entire series. And Kevon Looney just shows up and out-hustles everybody. Mm-hmm. And so that is how that one went. Golden State has a 1-0 lead in that series. But looking ahead to tonight's matchup, Boston-Miami, Game 2. Heat are a 1-point favorite in this one. Al Horford back in the lineup for the Celtics, but no Derek White today. Marcus Smart still a day-to-day.
And they don't have Sam Hauser.
Yeah, they don't have Sam Hauser. That's not going to be the biggest concern for the Celtics.
It's not, but
no Kyle Lowry still for Miami. Max Strus and Gabe Vincent both day-to-day. I assume they will play. They played in Game 1. Yeah, but the main thing I want to talk about a little bit, I saw this earlier, there's a potential COVID outbreak maybe happening within the Boston team. There's a rumor that might be a thing going on.
Games are getting delayed.
Yes, if that happens, then, oh boy, I did see there was a new COVID variant trying to pop up on the East Coast, so that could be something to keep an eye on in this series. I know we don't talk about medicine and health a lot on this show, but
well, usually we don't have to.
Usually we don't have to, but that could play a factor. I know Ime Udoka, the head coach of the Celtics, I believe he came down with a illness. They didn't say it was COVID, but it might be upgraded to COVID at this point. I have no idea.
We'll find out. We'll find out how
Yeah,
things are going to go
we'll
forward.
find out. But
as far as I can tell, obviously they'll still play the game, and then we'll probably find out what's going to happen afterwards, because there's obviously you're going to have a day or two between going to back to Boston after this game.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's COVID yet, and I hope it doesn't turn into COVID.
I hope it's not.
But
because
if that happens, obviously we're in a completely different reality again for the third year in a row of COVID impacting the playoffs. But hopefully we do not get to that point. Boston, the 1-point underdog in this one, and I mean, it really wouldn't surprise me Boston winning this game.
No.
Considering it took a third quarter breakdown by the Celtics, and then you get Al Horford back, so you get a veteran power forward who kind of could help if a situation like that was to occur. I will say, but also not having Marcus Smart. I know he's day-to-day, but I don't think he'll play. But no, if you don't have Marcus Smart, that's gonna affect defense. I mean, overall, Boston played well without him and Al Horford, but you kind of need your better players, especially to prevent any collapses that could happen. And Boston's still capable of doing it. I think it'll be a close one between the two of them. Boston will play well, but I think Miami will barely just hang on to win. See, I'm the opposite. I think Boston learns from their mistakes. I think you saw it here. Jimmy Butler went off for 41, and Jason Tatum had 7 turnovers, and nearly everything went wrong. You were out 2 starters, and you still only lost by 11. You get a starter back. You can learn from your mistakes. Don't let Miami get hot again. Don't turn the ball over what felt like 8 times in a row. I think Boston holds on to win this one. Yeah. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if Miami won, but I think this is going to be a 1-1 series going back to the Garden. And then Game 2, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, in the Bay. Once again, Golden State, 6.5-point favorites in this one. Warriors looking to get up 2-0 on the Mavs. And not a whole lot to say for this one. I mean, the main adjustment for Dallas is just make threes. That's the main one. You have your game plan. It was working at times. Obviously, Golden State kind of doing what Phoenix did, where they're going to clog the paint anytime Luka tries to drive. And usually when they do that, that means somebody's going to be open for a three. You got to be able to find that person, and they've got to be able to hit it. Now, for Dallas, I think they did a pretty good job kind of keeping it where one person didn't go off for the Warriors, but you've got to make sure you close the valves on a good chunk of them because, dear goodness, if you let more than one person go off, you're going to be in for a long day.
Well, just don't miss shots. That's basically all I can say for Dallas is that, like, Golden State, no one really went off. No one really did much of any. Like, I can't say much of anything. They got one.
I'll say that. Yes, but it's like a lot of people did enough. No one was a superstar.
The team did enough to basically have a comfortable lead through pretty much most of the game. But it was just like, if Dallas wasn't missing so much, Dallas easily is either right with them or could actually win the game. That's why I thought that. So basically, Golden State's shooting issues are still there, mainly in regards to Clay and Steph not necessarily going off like they should.
Yeah, so we go back to Game 1. Dallas shot 23% from 3. Absolutely just got bodied in the three-point shots. I mean, 11 out of 48.
If you at least if they up that by half, at least like make 13 more of the 48 shots, they shoot. They're either with them or they're winning the game.
Yeah, so that's the thing that bugged me a lot for the Mavs watching them was a lot of wide open looks. Like I said, 44 of the 48 were wide open looks. And when you have that going on, I mean, Bertans couldn't get a look. Dinwiddie struggled a bit. No one could get a three. Bullock struggled. Luka struggled. Brunson struggled heavily. It was a very, very bad time for the Mavs. And, I mean, you make 10 of those that you usually make and you go 20 for 48. I mean, that is 30 points right there, and you're dealing with
it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, you're dealing with a Mavs win. You're dealing with a 117-112 win.
That's where I'm like, Dallas, if Dallas just wasn't missing, Dallas is easily the better team, at least right now.
Yeah,
if they would make those shots, but obviously it makes it look like Golden State's so good. It's like no, Dallas just couldn't hit it.
Now Golden State did play good defense at times. I will say they were able to shut Luka down completely in the second half, and I will give them a lot of credit for that.
I mean, when 44 or 48 were wide open from three, there's a problem right there, where you're just not making open shots.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of Golden State's plan is we're just going to make Luka pass the ball because we know Dallas on the road is a way different team than Dallas at home. I'll be interested to see what their adjustment is in Game 3 when this gets to Dallas, but as of right now, I have no idea what's going to happen in Game 2. If Dallas makes their shots, it could be a completely different game, but I think Golden State will get the win. They play very, very beautiful basketball, very scary basketball if you're the opposing team when they're at home.
Really call it, the way they've been playing, it's not really scary basketball.
I don't know. That motion offense at times is absolutely killer to watch, but
it's not really a killer if your team's actually scoring.
I mean, that is true, but Golden State is probably one of the last teams I want to try to get into a shootout with. If I can stop them in any way, obviously do that.
You obviously don't want to. It's like if Clay and Steph are actually shooting well as we know they can shoot, like shooting about 30 a game, which they have not been doing since Game 4 of the series with Memphis. It's like Dallas could easily beat them in a shootout right now. Not easily, but they would win the shootout because they're not shooting well.
Yeah.
Well, or at least they're not doing what they should. But I mean, if they go back to how they typically how they've played in years past, then yes, that's the team you don't want to get into. But yeah, I have Golden State winning this one, but Dallas plays better basketball.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I think the Mavs will improve, but I do not know if it'll be enough. I don't think it will, unfortunately for them, but that is what we'll see tomorrow. But moving on to the NHL now, hockey's had some unbelievable games. We had some OTs, we had some upsets, we had a 15-goal game, which was incredible to watch. It's playoff hockey. There's nothing else to say about it. It's playoff hockey. Getting started with what happened Tuesday night, Tampa Bay going straight into good old Sunrise, Florida, and taking care of business. 4-1, beating up the Panthers. Tampa Bay is starting to turn back into their old selves again. They look exactly like they have the past 2 years now, and this is one of those statement games for Tampa Bay that they needed to get, and sure enough, they got it.
Florida just whatever worked against the Capitals just did not work here against Tampa. Tampa was ready to play, and it was just like looked at it, was going 1-1, kind of went away from the game a bit, and then like, oh my goodness, Tampa just jumped on them.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly what happened there. And then St. Louis, Colorado, the Blues were able to hold on, and by the Blues, I mean Jordan Bennington was able to survive the odds of getting shelled pretty much the entire game. This felt exactly like the Avs-Blues series last year, where Colorado just looks that much faster than St. Louis. St. Louis trying to play defensive the entire game. Colorado having none of it and trying to go for the throat about 10 minutes into the game. Couldn't really do it. The Blues were able to kind of sneak 1-0 lead out and then kind of hang around. Colorado started to fire up. They get up 2-1. Blues come back, score 2 minutes left in the third period, send this thing to overtime, and Colorado able to get the OT win, 3-2.
The fact that the Blues were able to send that to overtime was a stomp, meaning obviously great goalkeeping by the Blues, but it's just like I was shocked Colorado didn't win that 6-1 or whatever.
I mean that's how a lot of people felt. I think the Avs actually set a playoff record for most shots off the post, I think, in a game.
I think they had 63.
They had 63 total shots, and I know 6 or 7 of them were off the post or the crossbar or some combination of the two. They had a lot of almosts, but thankfully for the Blues, none of those went in, and you were able to take it to overtime, but just could not finish. And speaking of not being able to finish, the Rangers had that same problem. They had a 1-0 lead almost the entire game. I mean, they flat out dominated Carolina for 2.5 periods, and then the Canes started to get going. They get a goal late in the third, and able to coast it into OT and get the win there 2-1, getting a 1-0 series lead over the Rangers.
It was a must-needed one. I mean, the fact that I was expecting Carolina to mainly kind of beat up on New York, but New York was doing a great job just dominating for the most part. I understand they obviously only had one goal, but they were the aggressors and most of that game, and then Carolina just obviously did a great job sending it to overtime and getting the winning goal they needed.
Yep. And then finally, the Battle of Alberta, the true battle. I don't know what to say about this game other than Calgary scored 2 goals in 45 seconds to start the game. And that place was chanting, "We want 10." 3 minutes into the game, it was 3-0 Calgary. Like, Calgary was on a mission to destroy Edmonton. They get up 5-1, and then here come the Oilers. They score, they score, they score. Then Calgary scores to stop the bleeding, but Calgary blows a 5-1 lead. Edmonton comes all the way back, ties the game up at 6 in the third, and then Calgary scores 3 more goals in the final 10 minutes and puts this thing away. 9-6. 15 goals. It is the second highest scoring game won in NHL history. There's one game that had 18 combined goals. I believe it also involved the Oilers. I believe that was Oilers-Kings from, I want to say, the 80s or 90s. But it was an entertaining game, definitely. If you love offense, this is that series. This is going to be 2 of the most fun teams to watch in the NHL. Giant rivalry, the Battle of Alberta. They call it that for a reason. Since 1980, this series, when Edmonton plays Calgary, that matchup has the most penalty minutes of any matchup in the NHL. Those 2 teams do not like each other, and it usually shows.
Yep.
And so that will be a fun series to see continued Friday night. But going into the Pick'em tonight, obviously getting started in a few minutes here, Tampa Bay, Florida, Game 2. Panthers still favored in this one. Still no Braden Point for the Lightning. Cernak is a day-to-day for the Bolts. But no Marchment tonight for the Panthers, which always hurts when you have someone out, obviously depth issues and things like that. But I think Tampa Bay takes this one. I think they're starting to turn into their old selves again.
Well, with the way Tampa played against Florida, it makes it like, oh, Tampa's going to easily take them. I mean, despite the fact Florida has played much better throughout the course of the season, even playoffs have played better than Tampa. But Tampa took it right to them, and I'm not sure how Florida will respond.
I think if Florida takes one more punch here tonight, which I think they will, that might be 4-0. It might be over. I don't mean to call. I usually don't like to call series super early unless I'm certain about it. But I think if Tampa wins tonight, it's over.
You're more throwing a hypothetical.
Yeah, I was saying if Florida wins tonight, who knows? We could see 1-1. Anything's possible. But if Tampa goes up at home, if Tampa goes home up 2-0,
Florida will be lucky if they can take a game in Tampa.
Yeah. But Blues Avs tonight, Colorado favored in this one, 8:30 tonight on TNT. Ball Arena going to be rocking again like it was a few nights ago. No injuries for Colorado. They're still healthy. They're doing their thing. And I really don't see how the Blues are going to find a way to get a win here.
Blues are going to be lucky they can keep the game close.
I mean, the main key for St. Louis is what had to happen last year. They can beat you with speed. You beat speed with physicality. You have to just rough them up. You have to bring out, not the goon squad, but you need to establish a physical presence in this one and just pound them anytime you can. Whatever you've got to do to win this game, if you got to hit somebody into a wall, do it. It's hockey. It's the one sport's legal in.
Yep. Obviously, I know it's painful for you talking down on your Blues, but
this is the one team that St. Louis cannot beat. I mean, I don't know how they beat them in the regular season.
Like I was about to say, this is the one team no one wants to face. That's probably either the Florida teams. Like, Colorado is just that much better than everyone. I think overall, they're the best. I know they came off a sweep, but still they're still looking like the best team in the playoffs. I mean, the Blues are going to be lucky they can keep the game close.
I mean, there's a reason I've been saying the Avs are the best team all year. They're the best team. Florida might prove that again tonight. They're having to fight the Lightning off, but I think
when you're having to fight Tampa Bay, it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough series.
So,
but
I think for this one, Colorado, instead of this game doesn't go to overtime, I think Colorado probably gets like 4-5 goals on them.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. And then moving on to Friday's games, 7 o'clock ESPN Friday night, prime time, PNC Arena, rocking in Raleigh, whatever you want to call it. That crowd's going to be amped. And we've got a few injuries here. I mean, that's going to happen. But I still think Carolina takes this one. Something about Carolina at home is one of those weird things that you don't mess with that. They have insane amounts of momentum at home.
I think
absolutely insane what they can do.
Yeah, I think with what happened last night with the Rangers, I think that was more of a fluke. I don't as good as Rangers can be. I think that was that just doesn't happen, if at all. So I think Carolina comes out swinging for most of this game, and I think they probably win by. I know it's either one or a couple goals, but I think they don't let the Rangers get ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina comes out trying to be a lot more dominant, do what they did in the third period, be more aggressive.
If they do that, they're gonna they easily beat up the Rangers.
Yeah, they can. And then 9:30, late night in Alberta. I mean, late night for us, I guess I should say. It's 7:30 out there. Not the worst timing in the world, but late night for everybody else. If you're an East Coast hockey fan, I'm sure you don't like 10:30 starts, but. You know what? Also, if you're a Calgary or Edmonton fan on the East Coast, that's a story right there. I don't know how that one happened, but this will be another high-scoring game, I think. I am excited to see how this one turns out. I really don't know how it will. I think Edmonton showed they can come back from anything. Calgary showed they can do the exact same thing. These two teams are kind of perfectly matched for each other, I guess you could say, which makes sense.
When there's no defense.
I mean, when they're both offense first teams, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I think Calgary takes this one. They are favored. The over under 6.5 goals. You might want to put the over again on that one. Yep. I really don't know.
But yeah, I have Calgary also taking this. I think it's going to be another like you said, going to be another high scoring game. Obviously, expect both teams to come out swinging, trying to pummel each other. But pretty much all I can really say is that Calgary goes up 2-0 going to Edmonton.
Yeah, and what a fun series this will be. But now, time for the final thing to do today. I had mentioned we were going to do this, I believe, on Tuesday. It is time to talk about a little college softball. Regionals begin tomorrow at 11 a.m. It will be a good day. It is a day that if you love softball, you get to sit and do nothing for a very long time. Because if you start at 11 a.m., you go all the way to 11 p.m. If you love softball, you get 12 hours of it. Turn on, I don't know if ESPN, they used to do Bases Loaded for it, where they did whip-around coverage. I don't know if they're going to do that because you got hockey and PGA at Southern Hills and a whole bunch of other things going on. I don't know if they'll do it this year. I hope they do. I love watching it. It's great. I want to see them do it more. I don't know if they will. That is something, check, I guess, on ESPN.com is what I would do. But if they do it, great. If they don't do it, well, I will be upset. But starting with the number one team in the country, Oklahoma, they play Prairie View at 6:30 tomorrow on ESPN+. OU's going to do what OU does. That is more than likely going to be a run rule game right there. And then ESPN2 at 4 o'clock, going to have Minnesota, Texas A&M. I think this will be a pretty intriguing game. You got A&M, who's one of the lower teams in the SEC. SEC, of course, one of the best conferences in college softball. Minnesota, a Big Ten team, kind of finding their spark right now. They nearly upset Northwestern, who's a top 10 team. And so it'll be really interesting to see how these two go at it. I think Oklahoma takes the regional. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
It doesn't matter who they're going to play in the current regional. They're going to steamroll through everyone.
Yeah. And then moving over to, I would do this the other way, but for some reason the NCAA likes to mess with their website and put the 2 seed all the way down here.
Well, you got to set it up like a typical bracket.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense because the 2 seed should be at the top equal. Okay, you know what? I'll rant about that. I'll rant about that another day. Tallahassee Regional, Florida State, number 2 in the country. They'll take on Howard. and Mississippi State playing South Florida as well. That'll be at 5 o'clock on ESPNU. Should be another fun one to that Mississippi State, South Florida. South Florida's got one of the best pitchers in the country who has an ERA, I believe, of like .2 or something like an insane ERA. One of the best pitchers in the sport currently.
Although she didn't play against UCF in the AAC.
Yeah, I mean,
because UCF just went off on.
Yeah, UCF went off. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But Florida State, they'll win the regional. Yeah. South Florida might give them some problems, maybe, maybe not. Moving back up to the top of the bracket, because the NCAA likes to do this weird, Virginia Tech and St. Francis, that'll be the game there. Hokies are the number 3 national team. And Miami of Ohio and Kentucky. Kentucky's used to hosting, so a little weird for them to make a trip to Blacksburg, but they might give Virginia Tech some problems. I don't think they will. Virginia Tech's probably the most battle-tested team in the country. They have the best strength of schedule all year. So I think Virginia Tech will roll to a regional win here. Moving on to the number 4 national seed, I should say, is Arkansas. One of the best offenses in the country. The Hogs will take on Princeton at 5 o'clock on the SEC Network. And Oregon will battle Wichita State. If you love home runs, this is your regional. Arkansas can hit it out of the park. Wichita State can. Oregon can. Princeton's the Ivy League champ, so they got to be good for a reason. I mean, they're a conference champion. So it'll be a fun regional. Wichita State-Oregon will be one of those intriguing games to watch. If Wichita State plays Arkansas, that might be 1st to 15. Or you might even see, I don't know, you might see 20 scored in that one. Should be a fun one. I think Arkansas takes it there. You look at the number 5 national seed, that is UCLA. They take on Grand Canyon at 9 o'clock tomorrow on ESPN2. Loyola Marymount plays Ole Miss at 6:30. Those should be good games. UCLA is just still talented. There was a debate this year, though. Arizona State won the Pac-12 and beat UCLA, but because UCLA, they said, had a better strength of schedule, they put them over Arizona State, so there was a bit of controversy there, but I still think the Bruins will easily get out of their regional. And then moving over to number 6, Alabama. People were complaining about Alabama, saying they had a softer regional than some other teams, and I mean, they get Chattanooga at 3 o'clock on the SEC Network, and then Stanford and Murray State. I wouldn't sleep on Stanford, though. They have a really good pitching staff. And Murray State, I mean, prayers out to them. They've had, I believe their bus nearly got in a wreck on the way down to Tuscaloosa. So they have had some tough times there. So keep them in your prayers if you want to. But it should be a good regional. I think Alabama gets out of it. Yeah. Stanford might give them a bit of trouble. This Alabama team, I think, is a bit overrated at 6. I really don't think they should be.
If they get hit, probably when they deal with some good pitching, that might mess them up.
It might. This Alabama team has struggled to get hits. So Alabama-Stanford, if we get that game, look for that on Saturday. That could be a big one. And then Oklahoma State, number 7, they're getting to host. They'll get Fordham at 7:30. And North Texas and Nebraska at 5. Nebraska getting to come down, so an old Big 8 matchup there. Potentially in Stillwater if both teams do what they're supposed to. But I think Oklahoma State gets their regional win here. Moving on to the number 8 team, I already mentioned them, Arizona State. This is a stacked regional. This is Arizona State taking on Cal State Fullerton, who's another team traditionally known for being good at softball and baseball. That's a 9:30 game. And LSU San Diego State. San Diego State, the Mountain West champions. LSU, the ultimate wild card. They have beaten some top 5 teams. They have lost some games no one should ever lose. They're an ultimate wild card team. That game between LSU and San Diego State at 7 on ESPN2. And then looking at Northwestern's regional, the Evanston regional, Wildcats will be taking on Oakland at 3:30 and McNeese State playing Notre Dame at 1. I think this will be another pretty maybe interesting one, maybe not. Notre Dame, I mean, they might give Northwestern a challenge, but I think the Wildcats are just on another level. So I think Northwestern will get their win there.
Wildcats seem to be handed a easier regional.
They seem to be, but you never know. You never really know in the world of NCAA softball.
True.
Anything is possible. I really don't know why they did the bracket like this. Gosh dang people. Now I got to go back down here. But Clemson, number 10 in the country, they get North Carolina Wilmington at 11 a.m. I believe that will be an ACC network game, if I remember correctly. And then at 1:30, Auburn and Louisiana Lafayette. That will be a fun one. Lafayette, a known power in the softball world. And Auburn's not bad either. So that will be a good 2-3 matchup. And Clemson's still only in their third year of having a program. Already a top 10 team.
Gee, only third year? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, well, the ACC just decided to do softball like 5 years ago. Florida State won a national title, and then a lot of teams are like, okay, yeah, we can do this too.
Okay.
Yeah, the ACC's really weird when it comes to softball.
Alrighty then.
There's your history lesson for the day. And then Knoxville, weird regional because we get a battle of the OSUs. We get Oregon State and Ohio State. We get OSU versus OSU. One of them will be the superior OSU, I guess.
For that regional.
We'll find out if they get to play Oklahoma State, who the true OSU is. And Tennessee and Campbell at 5:30 on ESPNU. The Vols should have a pretty good time against Campbell, but I'm worried if they get Oregon State or Ohio State, they might have some trouble. Tennessee always notoriously nearly chokes in their regional and then gets blasted in a super. That has happened for like 5 years in a row, I feel like. They have World Series appearances, but it just I don't know what happens to them. They get to the regional and then they get blasted. But I think this year they got dealt a good enough regional they can get out of it. I don't think they're going to get upset this year like they did it last year to James Madison. So I think Tennessee gets out of it just fine, but you never really know. Let's see, where else on the map have we not hit yet? Duke, there we go. The Durham Regional, Duke and Georgia. This is a fun storyline. Last year, Duke was the number 13 team in the country, but could not host the regional because they were constructing the stadium for them to play in because they are also a young program. So they were fixing the stadium up, so they had to go to Georgia, and Georgia upset them. This year, Duke is once again the national seed, and Georgia has to come to Durham this year. So that's a little fun coinky-dink, I guess you could say. Georgia playing Liberty, 11 a.m. on ESPNU, first game of the day. This will be a fun game. Liberty is good. Georgia's good. This is going to be a fun regional. Then at 1:30, Duke taking on UMBC. Duke might honestly lose this regional. If Georgia or Liberty get hot at the right time, what happened last year might happen again, and we might see Duke get beat. You never really know, but I'll pick Duke to win, but that's probably the team I am the least confident about winning their regional.
Pretty much the safe bets are just to pick the regional winners.
I mean, yeah, that's the safe bet. One of them, this one's a bit squirrely, though. Seattle's regional, Washington
This might
playing
be
Lehigh at 7, but at 4:30, Weber State and Texas. Texas got punished pretty hard for that loss to Oklahoma State, plus their collapse kind of at the end of the year, losing to Baylor, things like that. And then they get to go play Washington. And in Washington and Texas, if they meet in Seattle, oh boy, that will be a fun game, especially with everything going on at Texas the past 2 weeks there for their softball program, the kind of turmoil they've had of what in the world is going on. Why are we losing to Baylor 17-3? Please explain. There were no explanations.
No.
So they're going to need to find something quick, but I think Washington takes care of them. Looking at the 14 national seed, if I can find them. There they are. It's Florida. Florida's kind of flying under the radar this year. Usually the Gators are a bit higher. They get Canisius at 3:30 in their game, and Georgia Tech and Wisconsin at 1 o'clock on ESPNU. I think Florida kind of strolls through this one. Florida will do what Florida does best. They'll play kind of slow against Canisius, and everyone will kind of be like, hey, what is this the year? And then they'll annihilate somebody. Florida will do what Florida does.
Yep.
And then the 15 seed is Missouri. Missouri, a little bit sleeper team, I guess you could say, because they have caught fire at the right time. They're able to upset Alabama. They upset Tennessee at the SEC tournament. They lost to Arkansas, which I mean, everyone loses to Arkansas this year.
Yeah.
They get Missouri State at 1 o'clock on the SEC Network. Arizona will play Illinois at 3:30. Arizona barely snuck in this year, which is important because they have made the NCAA tournament for over 30 straight years, and their streak nearly got ended this year.
Got lucky.
That's what happens when your coach retires and you have to kind of rebuild a program in about 5 months.
Well, that's what happens.
And so I think Arizona will put up a good fight. Illinois will too. But I think Missouri goes on a run. And don't be surprised if they give Florida State a challenge in a super regional. That's all I'll say about that. I'm not picking them. I'm just saying don't be surprised. And then finally, UCF in Orlando. First time ever UCF has hosted a regional. First time in, I believe, 5 years since a mid-major has hosted a regional. I believe Louisiana Lafayette was the last team to do it. And boy, did they not give UCF they did not give them a favorable draw because Michigan is sitting right there. They play South Dakota State at 2:30.
When you're the lowest seed, you typically get the worst draw.
Usually, but the NCAA is a little weird for softball. They try to do it region-based, like they try to be for teams that are within 400 miles of the stadium, but for UCFs, they just kind of threw teams together. So you get UCF and Villanova at 5 and Michigan and South Dakota State at 2:30. I think UCF gets the regional win, but Michigan upsetting them would not surprise me one bit.
I could probably see when they go into the first game, UCF loses to Michigan, but then goes through the elimination bracket to get back right at Michigan.
I could see that happening too, just kind of because of nerves for UCF. They've been so jacked up trying to get this series, and they finally have it. So I really think this is going to be a pretty chalk year after having a chaotic year. Usually that's how that works. I mean, if I had to pick one team to probably be scared for the most, I would say Duke, personally. If I have to pick a top 8, I would probably say Alabama or Arizona State. But that is what I think is going to happen regional-wise. And really, that's about it for the show today. There's not really anything else going on. I know college baseball tonight in the Big 12, big series there, Oklahoma, Texas Tech. That starts in about 4 minutes in Lubbock. That'll be a big series for the Big 12 crown, trying to factor that in with TCU and Oklahoma State and everything going on there. But other than that, that is all we have for tonight. So once again, like always, we thank you for tuning in. It's been a wonderful time once again with all of you. For Connor Gray, I'm Cade Kennedy. If you like what you heard tonight, be sure to subscribe to our channel, The Guys Who Stare at Stats, or our NWTV7 YouTube channel. If you want to find out when our show goes live, you can follow us on NWTV7 either on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We even have a TikTok. We have a Spotify. One day we'll actually get stuff uploaded there. You just got to yell at me enough. Or don't. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. You can always type in the chat and say, please do something. That is always something you can do. But until next time, have a great day, everybody.